When I first heard about Generation Zero, I was genuinely intrigued. A co-op focused FPS where you take back 1980s Sweden from killer robots, and it's made by Avalanche Software, the guys behind Just Cause. Well, smack me on the Berlin Wall and call me Hasselhoff, because I was excited. Then I actually played it, and all of my enthusiasm went the way of parachute pants. Conceptually, this game has great ideas, but tragically is one of those games. The type that clearly had potential to be something great, but instead will be remembered by its players as unremarkable and toil in obscurity far away from the conscious memories of everyone else. In this game, you play as a teenager who was on their way back from an island retreat when your boat was attacked. Washing ashore, you discover that everyone has disappeared, with killer robots patrolling and killing everyone on sight. Now, you and your friends have to channel your inner Red Dawn and take Sweden back, and along the way, uncover the mystery behind the robots. A great setup for what should have been a fun tribute to 80s action, even though narrative wasn't the main focus, but even by that standard, the story is literally non-existent. There is one apparently, but at no point did it feel like there was a sense of narrative progression or growth for any characters. In fact, it doesn't even feel like there are characters. You exclusively get missions from points of interest, like whiteboards, recordings, and various other items. This method of passive storytelling just leaves you disinterested in whatever is going on and uninvested. Because whatever happened to the characters, if you can even tell there are characters, you're just being told what happened rather than seeing or participating in it yourself. For example, there was a quest I did where I was trying to find a researcher who was based around near a lighthouse, but when I found him, he'd already committed suicide and was long gone, and whatever characterization I knew of him was just from audio logs and diary entries. And really, it was just dull going through those things. On the gameplay side of things though, the game does fare a lot better. You're required to organically search the buildings and the environment for supplies for when you get into the real meat and potatoes of the experience, combat, which does emphasize skill and planning over just going in guns blazing. Since the robots have you outnumbered and outgunned, you have to make use of guerrilla tactics to overwhelm them. Some have been designed to be taken on by more than one player, but the game is balanced well enough that it is possible for a solo player to take down every enemy type with perseverance. And this is where a genuinely great mechanic comes into play. The enemies are persistent, so if you're forced to run away from a tough fight, or something happens that you don't see, the enemies will still bear the damage from the first encounter, guaranteeing an easier fight even if your character hasn't been improved since then. This only applies to the enemies, unfortunately. The world, on the other hand, will have resources respawn between play sessions, and while combat is the best part of the game, it can also be a frustrating source of tedium. This is because despite a reasonable roster of enemy variety, the devs thought it was a good idea to give just about every enemy an attack that can knock the player down. And each time this happens, you're forced to endure an animation of your character getting back up, and this adds up. When you're constantly getting blindsided by these and knocked down every 30 seconds and you're forced to endure that animation again and again, you're just left so frustrated you want the fight to be over. Plus, on top of that, combat loses its challenge, but not through progression, but due to how easy it can be to stockpile revival items while looking for supplies. There's also nothing to do outside of combat. Full stop. There's no mini-games, no dynamic world interactions, or even interesting ways to traverse the open world, which really is shocking considering what the developers have done before this. You can't even use or soup up any of the cars in the environment, so your badass 80s action hero is literally forced to just hoof it to each location. And while the game can boast a genuinely lonely atmosphere and stellar sound design, it's not enough to make traveling anything but a slog. However, everything I've said now is from the perspective of a single player, and this was made with co-op in mind, so what's the difference? Well, the biggest difference I could see while playing with other people is that it's actually easier to bring enemies down. I didn't see much else because by the time I did try co-op, one of the game's biggest issues had tested my patience to the breaking point. The game has technical problems up the arse, and not the fun wonky kind that can make it so bad it's good. No, this is not like Two Worlds 2. At first, I actually thought Generation Zero was technically sound, but the more I played, the worse it got. With one quest failing to spawn the enemies I needed to actually finish it, and another where I tried to restart the game to fix a mission-critical door that was locked. Instead, the game just locked me out of the area that door was located completely, and I had no way of getting back in. This was also followed by graphical glitches and a bug I encountered in multiplayer where, for whatever reason, the game would auto-quit me from enemy loot drops, so I couldn't harvest resources from downed enemies or even from buildings. So if I wanted to keep playing in multiplayer, I'd have to get ready for my character to be absolutely defenseless. This was the final straw and the reason I stopped playing earlier than usual. And that's without even bothering to mention the installation problems I had. I literally spent 4 hours I could have actually spent playing this game, constantly trying to get the bloody thing to work right. First time I fired it up, it crashed on the character creation menu, wouldn't let me play, and in the end I had to uninstall it multiple times before finally realizing I had to uninstall it, delete some temp files, restart my computer, and then reinstall it. I should have realized then that it was a precursor to the shit show that was to come. Generation Zero is not a fun game. It's a test of one's patience that, if it had a little more time, could have been a wondrous love letter to the 80s. Instead, what we got was essentially Fallout 76 Offline Edition. If you were looking forward to this like I was, hold off on buying it and put your dollars towards something that's actually fun, like Darksiders 3. Hey, thanks for checking out the video, I really do appreciate it, and if you want to be a really super awesome person, then please also hit the subscribe button. Now for the next game review, I'm going to be taking a look at the Epic Store exclusive World War Z. And in terms of movie reviews in the pipeline, I've got some stuff for Jordan Peele's Us, Unicorn Store, and of course, Avengers Endgame. I've got all that and more coming up, so like usual, stick around.